Yeah, so my name's Derrick. Growing up, at like 12 or 13 years old, I think it was, maybe younger, I was having issues at school, was having a lot of trouble concentrating in school, was having a lot of trouble with focusing. And so I was diagnosed with ADHD. And so I was put on Adderall. And for me, having access to a prescription of Adderall, I saw it as a way to make a quick buck. People would tell me about this great feeling that they would get when they would take my pill and snort it. And so I immediately became curious about that. And I remember snorting it. And I had so much energy and I felt so calm and so focused. And when I snorted that Adderall, I felt in control of myself. I felt like I had power and control over myself. I felt like, I could do whatever I wanted to. The feeling was amazing, it was the thing I was searching for. I graduated from honors from Bremen High School and I walked in class of 2012. That summer before I went to college though, I was introduced to methamphetamine. I don't think at the time he really told me what it was. He just said that it'll make you feel really, really good. And so I remember taking it, I remember going to the bathroom, and I remember snorting it. And immediately from that day, I was hooked. I was off and running. I went from snorting to smoking to shooting, within the period of like a year. And it wasn't until I hit a bottom that I ended up reaching out to God, and I ended up saying, okay, I need to stop doing this. I need another way. And I remember I gave up methamphetamine, but I still proceeded to drink, pop pills, and smoke weed. However, I got very involved and very connected with that church. To see all these Christians, having their hands up, raised, welcoming God in, it was super, super powerful. And although I was loaded the whole entire trip, something set in me, something started to change, and I really wanted to change, but for me, the unfortunate side is, there's still chains holding me. The power that drugs held over me was too great at that time. Any sense of manageability that I had in my whole entire life was no longer there. It was off to the races. The minute I chose to use that needle, I started stealing. I started doing all these things that I would tell myself I would never do. And I remember, consumed by addiction, consumed by this need to get drugs. And this need to put drugs in my body. And something, the whole entire time I felt almost possessed, because I felt like that there was this darkness that just kept pushing me towards that drug, that just kept wavering over me, telling me to use, telling me I was worthless, telling me I was a piece of shit. And so I remember praying that night. Anyway, it'd been years since I prayed a deep heartfelt prayer, and that night I said the simple prayer of, if there's a God out there, I need help, and I need a way out. And that was my prayer, and help me out. And the next day, nothing changed. I still went and got my drugs. But what did change was that a couple hours later, I got a phone call from my father, who asked me if he could meet me somewhere. I met him. I went and sat down in his car, and I remember the concerned look on his face. He began to notice that I was hiding my arm like this behind my back, and I had a short sleeve shirt on. And so he asked to see my arm, and I showed him my arm. And he saw, track marks up and down my arm. and yeah, the bruises, just all bad. And I was at this point of where I was left with two options, you know. Either I'm gonna go to the bridge in Redmond and I'm gonna jump and I'm gonna kill myself, or they had somehow gotten really lucky and ended up getting me a bed in a residential treatment center in Best Care, and so they offer that to me. They offer for me to come home to go to treatment. And so the thought of going to treatment was appealing because I knew that there'd be food, I knew that I would get fed, I knew that there'd be a safe place to stay. You know, I knew I wasn't going to go to jail if I went to treatment. You know, and I clung to the thought of that I'd get my family back if I went to treatment and please them. Day two, you know, like day 2 or day 3, I finally made the decision to go. And on June 9th, I decided to check myself into Best Care. I decided to surrender to my family, and I decided to choose a better way to live. And so I went to Best Care. I went and checked myself in. I got clean when I was 19. You know, a pretty immature kid. When I went to treatment, I lost the concept of God. You know, somewhere along the way I lost that. You know, I was filled with resentment, with hate, and in a sense I was my own God, is what I looked at for a little while. And so I got booted out of treatment, and I was left with one option. You know, my parents weren't going to take me back, and so I was forced to go to a homeless shelter. And so the counselor I was working with at the time had managed to get me into the shepherd's house. And for me, like the fog was still lifting. You know, I was still getting clean. I was still trying to find myself. You know, my brain still hadn't fully healed from all the drugs that I'd done, from all the trauma that I would put under myself. And but I do look back and I do see the shepherd's house as being a very pivotal role in my whole entire life today. And that's that it started to reintegrate me into some type of faith, and it was little things, little verses that be read and stuff like that I think opened me up to later, where I became more willing to actually listen to what was being said, you know, to actually have an open mind around things, to be able to forgive God, you know, and realize that it was not his fault, you know, and that it was ultimately my fault, man. You know, like I'm a flawed human being, you know, and God created each and every single one of us flawed. You know, he gave us a choice, you know, he gave us the option to choose between sin, you know, and his word, you know. And it's like I chose sin for so many years and stuff like that, and was filled with this resentment because in my mind I was thinking, you know, God never changed me, God never fixed me. Well, that wasn't on God. You know, I chose the path that I chose, you know. And ultimately today I look back on it, I look back on all the demons and all the things that I faced, you know, and I'm grateful to those things. You know, I'm extremely grateful because they've shaped me into the person that I am today, and they have made me a stronger Christian as a result. You know, if I never would have became an addict, you know, if I never would have done drugs from the get-go, like I wouldn't have any way of helping people through the misery. I wouldn't have any way of putting myself in somebody's shoes and saying, hey, I know where you're at, you know, I know where you've been and it sucks, you know. But here's the thing, is like, you can get clean, you can stay clean, you can have a better way of life. You know, you don't have to be bound to live your life in jail, you know, live your life in prison, live your life in misery, you know, like there is hope. And it's truly an awesome, miraculous thing, you know, to have come from being a person who used to put a needle in his arm, you know, who used to steal from his family, you know, who used to disappoint, who used to lie, who used to cheat, who used to, you know, do all those downright dirty things, to now being the person who is able to hold himself with integrity, who's able to go into the jail, you know, to be able to reach people and say, hey, you know, like I know you're struggling, man, you know, but like, let's help get you into treatment, you know, let's help get you these resources and stuff. You know, I'm truly blessed because, you know, August of this year, August 9th, I get to undergo one of the last and final trainings that I need in order to get my drug and alcohol counselor's license. And then I just need 200 clinical hours in order to be able to become a certified drug and alcohol counselor. So, I mean, my hope is, you know, like, my passion is to help youth, you know, to help adolescents, to help people who are younger get clean. And so my hope is that, you know, one day I can become that person, you know, one day I can become that drug and alcohol counselor, you know, who's able to sit with youth, you know, who's able to talk to them and say, hey, you know, like, I got clean when I was your guys' age, you know, and this is possible, you know, and let me show you how it's possible. So